Well, good morning. Thank you for joining us for what is a really an honor and opportunity to present a significant uh, initiative launched a few weeks ago in Los Angeles by the National Academy of Public Administration. We've got a full morning crammed into an hour. So if you'll let us share a couple of thoughts and have a discussion, but we are very open, obviously, to any and all of you asking questions, and we'll have a little time to do that. And then obviously, post today's town hall, I'm sure Amanda, Nancy, James Christian, and I are on the ready for follow-up conversations and calls. But given what we have in the way of the agenda, I thought we'd jump in pretty quickly. In this way, James Christian will cover really the significant work of the Academy on a broad scale, and then through Nancy and Amanda, really drill down into the work of the new hub, have an opportunity for the four of us to have a little bit of a dialogue back and forth, and then, as I said, open ourselves up for questions and ideas. And then Amanda and I will wrap up on a little bit of a call to action. So with that, let me describe what I think is a part of the drivers for what our work under Future Proofing America and why today we are announcing that the Resilience Innovation Hub, which was formed in the wake of Hurricane Harvey some 6, 7 years ago, is now merging itself into the Extreme Weather Resilience Hub. All of you, in some way, in some part of the country, have been impacted by a series of persistent billion-dollar disasters. This is just a snapshot of 1 week of articles that come out across the country detailing the level of these disasters, the impacts that it's having on insurance and mortgage and taxpayers, and a whole set of challenges. So it's not like we haven't seen the challenges. The issue is that they continue to mount in ways where the transformation at the federal level and other issues are really, really putting a sharp focus on how we take action. So some of the problems, Amanda, as you and I talked about very early on, you know, cut across different sectors, different interests. And that is one of the reasons why we believe the new Extreme Weather Resilience Hub is a important opportunity to continue to bring others with their expertise, their insights across the country, and the work that the Academy has already done to begin to tackle some of these problems. So, this goes from, as some of you will recall, the building collapsing in Surfside, Florida, which then caused almost 200 other buildings to be recognized as deferring their maintenance, to insurance going up in certain places, limited capacity, mortgages increasingly going into default. As a result of all of this, you start seeing the asset base, which actually becomes the tax base of a lot of communities, falling because of these persistent disasters. Taxpayers, and we're talking about federal, state, county, municipal, are overwhelmed. And at the end of the day, it begins to weaken the United States economic competitiveness around key industries, including national security, national defense, where we have major ports and major facilities in certain areas that are increasingly persistently hit with disasters. So you all will get a chance to look at this. I'm not going to go through slide by slide, but what I do want you to recognize is that these trend lines are not going down. And we started looking at, Nancy, how to forecast, which is the important part here. A lot of historical and current data, but the most important is for all of us to look ahead 5 to 7 years out and realize that if we don't do certain things and don't find interventions, it's only going to get worse. So we looked at, James Christian, the data to support this thesis that we believe the Extreme Weather Resilience Hub and National Academy can further because of your relationships with academic research institutions and executives that have served in key positions who are also driven by facts. But we also wanted to make sure that the stakeholders were broader than just offices of emergency management, the FEMA world, that we really are looking at, real estate, all the way over to industries and employers that go from disaster to disaster, and now I think are expecting something to emerge that is a much more what I would refer to as pre-disaster risk mitigation. So James Christian, you're sitting in Washington, D.C., and this graphic was wonderful until about February and March when the devolution discussions occurred and continue to be debated about the future of federal funding and what it may look like. So you have states that have been very, very much reliant upon these previous disaster funding, and obviously because they sit in highly vulnerable areas. But the work now of the academy and the work of the hub, I think, is one of those opportunities to have a healthy discussion, but also one that leads to some solutions. Future Proofing America has a lot of goals and lots of ambition that have really come down to coordinating amongst different stakeholders, such as the Genslers of the world, the largest design architecture firm, all the way over to Moody's and Fitch, two of the three major ratings agencies. We've brought those together in a way to not study, not do another report, but to really find ways to convert data to actionable intelligence. And we look to support the Academy and the Hub in actually doing projects and pilot projects at a level with communities and leaders so that we can go from study to beginning to scale solutions into the, so to speak, into the marketplace. James Christian, one of the other, two other items, and then I'd like to turn this over to you, is it is not a lack of capital, which is what we found. This is not a capital issue. We have still billions of dollars in unspent presidential declarations in many states. You still have some of the work to be done by the original infrastructure bill. You've got a lot of capital sitting in and around the insurance and reinsurance in their capital markets and other forms of funding. And we have over $12 trillion pent up in family offices and impact investing. So one of the things I think, Amanda and Nancy, that the Academy can help us do and drive is the reality that the capital is there. We just are missing ways to target that capital into some new governance structures, especially at the state and local levels. So with that, let me introduce James Christian Blockwood, President CEO of the National Academy, to welcome us and give some of the background on the Academy. And then he'll turn it over to Nancy and Amanda to drill down into what is the work of the Hub.
So, Rich, thank you so much for the introduction. And importantly, thanks for your leadership on this particular effort, but also more generally. You've been doing that within the community for some time, and I appreciate your efforts. I took over becoming the president and CEO of the National Academy of Public Administration in January. And we're a congressionally chartered, nonpartisan, nonprofit organization. And we have over 1,000 fellows that come from many different sectors: academia, private sector, all levels of government, nonprofit. And our fellows are all working to make government as effective, efficient, transparent, and as accountable as possible. And we do that through our thought leadership, through our research, through convenings, and through partnering with organizations like yours and many that are joining us for this town hall. One of the things I found very interesting as I've taken on this new role is the great opportunity we have, but it's hard to see that opportunity without acknowledging first the challenge. There's no shortage of challenges, particularly for those who care about and are working in public administration. Over the last few years, we've seen a growing frustration and a declining trust in government. We've seen national conversation around the role of government, its size, its responsibilities, limits or not to its authority, and really debate on how government can best serve the people.
Right.
In this debate, one thing becomes very clear to me, which is government can always be better. It's also important to acknowledge that in the major things throughout our history, government has also delivered in ways that no other entity could. Now, how do we help government be better? In this time, I don't believe it's incrementally. I think government must transform, not just reform. So that's something that you're going to hear more about from my colleagues. And just before I turn it over to them, let me talk a little bit more about some of our priorities. One of the things you said was that I'm sitting in Washington, which is true, but the Academy is and works across the entire country. And in fact, we've worked at the federal level, but also at the state and local level. And it's no surprise we launched the hub in Los Angeles, and that we see state and local partners as really key to this transformation that I spoke of before. And so what I would ask my colleagues to share is more about how we're going to go about bringing different stakeholders together to help improve different communities on a variety of issues. Now, when I think about priorities, for us, it's the helping government get on a more sustainable financial path. It's helping our public administrators deliver better services and public health to communities. It's helping our public administrators better understand how to protect our country and do national security. But it's not just that, it extends far more. And one of those important areas is going to be in extreme weather resilience and climate adaptation. That's why we've launched the hub. That's why we've done it with a focus on state and local and intergovernmental coordination. That's why it's important to be seen not just as a Washington-centric effort, because it isn't and can't be, as something that's across the country. It's important to note that the consequences are too grave not to get this work right. It serves way too many people. It's important to think about, it's not just about the short term and the near term and what we're going to do now, but thinking long term in the future and how we can prepare for that. And it's also important to think about how this is going to need to be a whole of society response. And so while the hub is going to provide new thinking, new tools, new ways of collaboration, and hopefully spark more conversation around this important issue and build on the momentum, it will require the participation of everyone in our society, importantly, the public, as well as all of the entities that are working hard to make sure the public is safe. So I'll turn it over to Nancy now, but just wanted to again really say I'm excited for the partnership that we have here. I'm excited for how we can help entities work together on this really important topic. And I look forward to being able to work with all of you who have joined us for this town hall. So Nancy, I'll turn it over to you now to talk a little bit more specifically about what we're doing in the intergovernmental level and then you can ask very kindly for Amanda to talk specifically about the work of the hub.
Thanks, James Christian, and that's a perfect backdrop. So the Academy has been at this kind of work for several years now. The Center for Intergovernmental Partnerships was created 4 years ago to focus on that relationship between the federal government and state, local, tribal, and territorial governments. And essentially, our mission is to find more effective ways for all of these different levels of government to work together. And, of course, there's just so many areas of policy, before we even get to resilience and disaster issues. There are so many areas of policy where state and local government in particular are so instrumental. The vast majority of domestic policy in the United States is implemented at the state and local level, designed and largely funded at the federal level, passed through the states and implemented at the local level. So that's a lot of the ethic that we bring to our work at the center. Very early on, though, I have to say we picked up on this issue of resilience and the need to look at adaptation. So we've done a good amount of work in this area that really provides a good foundation and a good backdrop for the work that Amanda is now leading in the Extreme Weather Resilience Hub. So we have long looked at the need to empower and equip local governments, particularly the smaller local governments, with the tools that they need to prepare for extreme weather and for disasters. We have also always focused on support for marginalized communities. So for instance, in many small, if you think of the coastal eastern seaboard, there's so many small communities that deal with just terrible issues of extreme weather and disasters, yet they really don't have the wherewithal to deal with those issues. So, so what we found in our work is that looking at governance and finance are two of the most critical issues. And in fact, the United Nations Intergovernmental Panel, the IPCC, identified governance and financing as two of the major challenges to implementing successful adaptation measures. So let me unpack that a little bit. The governance challenge is that decision-making is fragmented across so many units of local government involving multiple agencies and multiple sectors. And they don't have, for the most part, they don't have a clean and clear way of working together to take on these large issues. And then the financing challenge is that the risk reduction projects usually exceed what a single locality can afford, and these projects cover a larger area than a single locality controls. So to do adaptation well really requires broader coordination and funding across the jurisdictions. And so that's kind of the predicate or the context in which the hub has been launched. So let me turn it over to Amanda to talk more specifically about what we're doing with the hub.
Thank you, Nancy, and thank you, James Christian, and thank you, Richard, for being a great partner as we stand up the Extreme Weather Resilience Hub. We launched about a month ago in Los Angeles in the backdrop of the wildfires that really had a significant impact on that community and will have a significant impact on that community for decades to come. And that's what we're finding and we're seeing across the United States. These are disasters that happen. They catch our attention. They make us donate funds to help people recover. And then we go on and we hear about the next one and the next one and the next one. And what can we do to really change the path forward on this topic? What are the things that we can do? What are the skill sets that we have in public administration that we can bring to this topic, this challenging topic, and try to drive real change at the local level? So our hub is focused on place-based solutions. We know that local governments are the best positions to know what their communities need. So our solutions will be place-based. Our solutions will focus on the people that need the help the most. And these things need to occur. We know that not one single locality can do this. We know that disasters are occurring across jurisdictional boundaries and therefore need to be addressed in a regional way or in a collaborative way. And the mechanisms that are needed to do that aren't available currently, and we need to test those. We need to adopt toolkits in order for local governments to be able to implement those things, working with their partners. So we really need to operationalize, I think, some of the conversations that we've been having about adaptation, and we're going to need, as others have mentioned, a whole of government approach. We're going to need those skills from different sectors and different areas of public administration to bring to this topic. So looking even at something like procurement reform, how do we streamline the procurement process so that we can work together to purchase these things that we're going to need to do larger scale infrastructure projects? Using AI, what governance structures are we going to need to put into place to use AI to address adaptation? So taking a different look at this challenge from a public administration standpoint, leveraging the knowledge and expertise of our fellows is what we're proposing to do with the hub. So how do we do this? And it's very much a conceptual hub at this point, and really critical for us is to find the right partnership and the right local area to work together on this important topic. So bringing together our experts, our over 1,000 fellows, but also our partners. It's really important to bring those people together to convene to discuss these topics and to work on actionable solutions. Bringing in our assessment capacity, so identifying the barriers to implementing successful adaptation projects on a regional scale, and leveraging our knowledge and expertise from our more traditional work in the federal space. And then focusing again on solutions. So working with the experts to identify new governance structures or tweaking other existing governance structures. How do we create the governance structure that enables financing from multiple sectors and locations to come together to really solve these challenges for communities? And the goal is, in any place that we go, taking those lessons learned and best practices and being able to share those with other communities in many different ways. So that is the concept of the hub. And I know Richard's going to ask us some questions, and I'm sure others will have questions about what we're up to, and we're happy to answer those and continue the conversation. Thank you.
Great, Amanda and Nancy, James Christian as well. Thank you for yours. I'm going to put this up here for those who are looking, number of ways to get information and follow up. We'll come back to this in a little bit. I describe this as a fireside discussion, which half the time I think is the right way of having people huddle and have an exchange. But at the same time, somebody said to me, we've got too many wildfires, Nancy, so maybe we need to come up with, campsite or something like that. Let me, based on items that you all have covered, Nancy, I'm going to start with you on something that's a little bit of a twist to leverage what James Christian and Amanda talked about. If you recall the slide that I had up that had all of this fragmentation of funding, all right, I have another graphic that James Christian looks at all of the nearly 70 plus federal funding programs, and then you start kind of tracking them, like you said, Nancy, across states and all. The reality I think that folks are looking to now is, we kind of refer to it as the Gordian knot. It's just so many threads here, Nancy. So if you'll take the lead, and then James Christian and Amanda jump in, but given the significant brain power and networks that the Academy has, it's not just these 1,100 fellows, it's, the 10 people that they know. I mean, we've got this huge brain trust. So how do you all see, leveraging what I call the know what, know how, and know where and when to apply? What's your thinking on that?
Yeah, no, well, absolutely. We have to start with the fellows. The fellows are a tremendous asset to us, and it's not just a pool of accomplished people that they are, but we have fellows with deep experience at the national, state, local level, and nonprofit and other sector level. So they will be our go-to resource to be able to start to untangle this complexity. And the other thing is that they don't just have single sector experience. So many of them have multiple sector experience. So they can help us provide that insight into how the different levels of government can work together. The other thing that I would mention is that the Center for Intergovernmental Partnerships particularly has built good relationships with some of the associations representing other levels of government. So for instance, we have a great relationship with the National Association of Counties. We have a relationship with the International City County Management Association, Government Finance Officers Association. And I'm sure I'm forgetting to mention some very important ones, but we think that drawing on those resources will be really critically important for us.
Playing off of that, Nancy, James Christian, when we, visited out in LA, just in that one session of the launch, looking around, you had individuals that had, federal agency background, academic background, private sector industry background, the agile government piece that you all are also building off of here really kind of speaks to what Nancy just said, James Christian, and that is, this is not fellows who are locked into the boxes from which they may have served. These are individuals that really now, through their service, can say, look, we've got to do some innovation, or, to use your words, transformation. James Christian, am I describing that correctly?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're describing it exactly right. And let me just tell you how I see this and how I think about that transformation, and where I think the academy plays a big role in. The first place this shows up, you mentioned when we were in Los Angeles and we were launching the hub, and you looked around the room and you saw the number of stakeholders that you did. Here's why you saw those individuals, is because we're talking about an issue that has real implications for real people. It really takes being able to go to an environment or being from a place that experiences some sort of trauma, pain, or unfortunate circumstance for people to really understand the type of work we're trying to do. And so that's a very motivating factor. So the people that you saw in the room, they really get it. They're saying, this is a real problem. We need to put real resources and investment behind it to solve. And so that's where you have the academy saying those real investments and resources are fellows. They are partners. They are our many best practice and frameworks to approaching some of our hardest, most complex public administration challenges. It's also leveraging other things that we do. And I would ask Amanda maybe to share a little bit about the work we're doing with it around Agile, because that work, how we do our work innovatively, how we look at bringing fellows from across a wide range of backgrounds, and how we look at doing our work across different levels of government and having many players come together to try to resolve an issue. All of this plays an important role. So again, let me just ask Amanda maybe to share a high level overview of what we're trying to do with Agile, because it's very related to what we're trying to do with the hub.
Of course. So we have our Agile Government Center. Is another center of excellence comparable to our Center for Intergovernmental Partnerships, led by esteemed fellow Ed DeSev, who was the political appointee responsible for implementing the Recovery Act under the Obama administration. And Ed has taken the philosophy that he operated in government to agile software principles. So I think a lot of people are familiar with that we need to focus on elements of leveraging these software principles on iteration and working in small teams. And a lot of those tactics, he has taken his experience and married them together, and we have the Agile Government Center. So it's focused on being very clear about what your mission and vision is for success, and setting that up front and being very clear and centered around driving results and outcomes. And then you leverage evidence to make those decisions. You set metrics to help you measure your success. But the real critical thing, I think, on the front end is leadership. We are going to need leadership that is empowered to make decisions, that are going to be able to make trade-offs in certain circumstances. We're going to need teams. Interdisciplinary teams are very critical to Agile. And I think that's directly applicable to the topic that we're talking about in terms of adaptation. You're going to need networks. So mapping out your network, who are the people that are most knowledgeable about a certain topic, and identifying those people and figuring out ways to work together. Focusing on the customer or the public. So all of your solutions should be centered around creating change for either your customer. So if you're a service delivery agency, so disaster recovery, for example, I'm a survivor of a disaster. I need support from the federal government. I'm a taxpayer and I need help. Do I want to figure out if I need to go to FEMA first, or SBA first, or HUD first, or DOT first for funding to recover from disasters? No, I want to know what I'm eligible for. And so, a concept that I've heard talked about multiple times, and there's a lot of challenges with that with regards to privacy and data sharing, is just have a disaster assistance portal. And I think FEMA made some progress in doing that. And then you put in your information, and then you are match made with the grant programs that you're eligible for, or other sources of funding that you're eligible for, but making it easier, making it a customer-centric approach to implementing service delivery at the government level. And focusing on innovation, speed, and persistent iteration. So being able to test things. We're not going to design the perfect bill up front that is going to solve every problem. We need to marry development of policy with your implementation of policy. And those two things are often very siloed and very separate, but those two things need to come together if we're going to have efficient and effective government going forward. So I think this is a great opportunity for us to bring together the Center for Intergovernmental Partnerships work that's already been going on, our Agile Government Center work that's already been going on, and really apply the knowledge and skills that we have at the Academy to extreme weather resilience.
Let me bridge two observations based on what the three of y'all just talked about. Let me go back to James Christian. Here's what I wrote down. Policy tends to be kind of, Nancy, don't throw your shoe at me on the screen. Policy tends to be, smart folks, sometimes perceived to be, an academic exercise, inside the beltway type of thing. What James Christian, you just said, I think we need to, Amanda, continue to keep in the forefront. And that is, these are kitchen table issues that the people we're trying to serve, they're trying to get better prepared so that they don't have to just survive, they want to thrive. And that policy needs to reflect what those individuals, those families, those communities really need in that transformation, James Christian, if I'm saying it correctly. But we've got to keep in the forefront that these are kitchen table, discussions. And then let me play off before I go to the next two quick questions. I want to keep us on time. Is knowing Ed DeSev, who comes from running OMB and doing the Recovery Act and looking at that. My work with him was on A76, which is the private public partnership procurement. I think when we talk about governance, Nancy, as you said, we cannot separate out the issues of finance, procurement, and ways to really, recognize that we're all very much in favor of waste, fraud, and abuse, audit, transparency. And at the same time, sometimes those things, Nancy, can tip a little bit to the point where people who are sitting at a kitchen table or whatever was their kitchen table are just kind of going, I gotta move, right? Let me ask this second question because it plays off of that. Excuse me. With what is emerging as a federal devolution, meaning the federal government stepping back from some of its traditional roles, responsibilities, and resources to now saying others need to pick this up. I sense that this work of the hub right now, if there's a sense of urgency, Amanda, is to help come up with a framework that says we know what we were doing before is not going to be how we're doing it going forward. Is that one of the frameworks of the hub, is to really look at this time and moment about federal devolution and to serve as a means of facilitating some new frameworks? Am I saying that right, Amanda?
I think so. We'd had the hub in concept. Mark and Jean Pisano are our fellows and founders of the hub. They had been working on for several years a climate adaptation working group. And this all just kind of fell into place in January of this year when new administration and now a new approach to FEMA. We're really questioning the design of FEMA, its role, how does it work with states and local governments? And I don't want to be the group that says that FEMA was working perfectly before the new administration. In my prior work at the Government Accountability Office, we set out a report of there were over 30 different federal agencies involved in some aspect of disaster recovery. And you would not design a system like that if you were building a system to adapt to extreme weather, or if you were building a disaster recovery system today in the modern world. It's just not a system that you would design. So taking this moment in time, and it's going to be very painful, change can be very painful for people, to take a look at what is the system that we need to design to be able to effectively address the issue of adaptation. We know that a lot of the focus had been, a lot of the funding is after the disaster has already happened. That is a challenging model. We know that it can be very helpful to put that funding in upfront. And how do we flip that? How do we change that approach? So I think the timing of the hub is perfect. Obviously, we don't want to see these things impacting states and local governments. We're heading into hurricane season. I'm very concerned about what's operationally going to happen with this new administration. But I also want to take an opportunity to say, we need to make sure that all of our solutions are local focused and they're best serving the customer of the people at the local level and not being driven from a federal agenda. And I think that's the ongoing work of the CIP, is how to make the intergovernmental system work together. This is the Constitution of the United States. Federalism is baked in. So how do we make the intergovernmental system work better together?
Look, you're using a great phrase that I think the hub and those who are, fellows and those that are, with us this morning and will listen to this later on, it's a systems approach. And more than likely, it's not linear anymore. It's, around. That's one part of it. The other is, we are at a unique moment to step back and figure out how to unleash the best of American innovation and ingenuity. And again, knowing some of the fellows in part of my previous time in DC, Nancy, these are individuals who did not often sit and look at things as this is the way we've always done it and this is the way we're always going to do it. I think that's where the hub has an opportunity. All right. So to the three of y'all, and then we'll open it up to a few questions from folks that are with us. We've already got some folks putting some questions into the Q&A part of this. We're Amanda, we're halfway through 2025. We've got a couple more months left here. We got, a full 2026 ahead of us. Um, where did the three of you, and let me start with James Christian and go Nancy and then Amanda to you, is where do you all want to have the hub? Where do you see it? One, from within the context of the academy, but also to your strategic partners in state and local government. So James Christian, if you said, okay, Richard, we're 18 months and we're sitting here again giving kind of a report, where do you want to see it? Nancy, where do you want to see it? And Amanda, where are you going to get us? No pressure, Amanda. Okay.
I appreciate that question. Let me try to answer it simply. And this is for all of those who are listening and who will maybe listen later. I'd like to see it exactly where you are. I'd like it to become instinctual and inherent into how we do the work. So I don't see it solely as a physical manifestation of something. I see it as the concept that allows us to address this issue around extreme weather resilience. Let me just go back to something I heard Amanda say, and then based off your question, Richard, is you know this is a moment in a time for new frameworks, new approaches, and the things that we are going to be faced with, whether it's the next hurricane season coming up, or whether it's some natural disaster or extreme weather event that we have yet to anticipate, we have to be ready. And that does require new thinking, innovative approaches, but the academy is ready. And one of the things you also mentioned is around policy. There are lots of different policy choices out there, but the beauty of public administration is it's not about the policies, it's about the implementation of it. And we want to do that in a smart way. We want to do that based off evidence and experience. We want to do that so that we learn, and we want to do that in an action-oriented way. And the academy has, you talk about where you want the hub to be as your question. And I said, where with everyone and where our listeners today are, is because the academy, our fellows, are people that are from communities that have been impacted. They're academics that have literally written the book on how to approach public management challenges. They are city, state administrators. They are federal leaders across many different issues. And so we have all of the resources and all of the tools at our disposal. And so I see this as not a physical manifestation, not a physical place, but one that will reside with people, a new approach, a new way of thinking, a new way of working that carries with people across many different communities. So where do I want the hub to be? I want it to be with people across all of our communities, working on these really critical issues in ways that we haven't yet maybe mastered, but we really need to get right because the different challenges are coming.
Excellent. Nancy? Thank you, James Christian. Nancy?
Yeah, so I'll let Amanda talk about the very concrete plans that we have made, but for the Center for Intergovernmental Partnerships, we have been and will continue to prioritize this project to focus on building our relationships and making sure that we connect the work that we have already been doing to improve the intergovernmental system to expand to include improving resilience before disasters happen and when the rebuilding occurs afterwards. So that will be our priority for the rest of the year. But let me let Amanda talk concretely about
yeah. Nancy, let me play off of something because I got a chance since I was out in LA because I don't sleep anymore. I got a chance to read through some of the excellent reports and documents that the different centers have really put together. These are phenomenal playbooks on which to begin, right? It's not like we're the hub, if I'm saying it, and I'm not trying to steal your thunder, but it's not that the hub's got to go do a lot more. Yes, there'll be times for research and all, but it's phenomenal. If folks have not looked at these reports and studies and prior convenings, they are already a great playbook, Nancy, if I'm saying it. It's now taking that playbook, right, Amanda? And here it is. So, Amanda, how are you going to take these significant playbooks and get it down to one page?
So I view my job as the person that makes this all happen. The charter that we signed in LA created the position of coordinator, and I really do think that is what it is. It's not a director, it's a coordinator, because I need to leverage the skill set that Nancy has. I need to leverage the skill set that you have. I need to leverage the skill set of the Agile Government Center, and I need to coordinate it all to drive change. That's what I view my role is. So what are we doing now? Number one priority for us is to find a location and sort out a business model that works so that we can really take this concept. I think we have a lot of really great ideas and a lot of really different ways that we could design this and take this, but to do this in a community and figure out how do we really make this hub concept work. We also have partners in other places. Monash University in Australia is potentially going to be piloting climate resilience districts concepts from California out in Australia. So making sure that we create that network, that solid network of partners, that when we do find the ideas that will work, that we have a network to share and discuss them and to learn from each other as we're going through this process. So we're looking for establishing similar relationships that we have with you and Future Proofing Collaborative. We have our existing network, and we'll continue to partner with people like BPC and Pew and others. And then in September, we're hosting an event at our office in Washington, D.C. that will be hybrid, where we will seek to announce advisory committee members, so fellows, to help us with our strategic direction for the hub. So, but the main priority is finding the place where we can really bring this concept to life and then highlight it and share it and replicate it in other places.
So that is part of the call to action, right? And let me, I know we've got about 9 minutes if folks can hang a little bit longer past our deadline, but we've got 3 great questions from 3 very different smart folks. Barbara Dyer, what do we know about how local government and states currently are learning from one another in the adaptation? What are the networks that are in play now, and how open are they to collaborating with this effort? Barbara, I'll share one observation, and obviously NAPA. I think what folks are beginning to realize is there is a lot of great work underway across the country. No question, a lot of great work. A lot of, very significant homegrown efforts. Some of them are regional. I think one of the concerns that I've always had is that none of this should be competitive with each other. We need every oar in the boat. We need every resource aligned. So I think, Amanda, what you said earlier and what the intent is, right, is anybody and everybody is welcome. Am I saying that right, Amanda?
You are. I don't view this as a competitive space. I view this as we need action and we need it now. And therefore, as many folks, smart people, are working on this topic and can collaborate with us, and we can learn from folks that have already done things. Part of our visit to California, we met with several community-based organizations doing very similar work, finding those people and organizations that are already in communities doing the work and partnering with them and learning from them. This is not a competitive space. I think we all recognize commonly that this is a challenge that needs many different solutions, and we would just be one of those many different solutions to make this work.
All right. So Nancy, this one's to you because he's frankly one of the great minds that's on this call and should be a part of this ongoing, and that is David Marstead, who recently retired, running the National Flood Insurance Program, helped put in place and drive the BRIC program and other programs. His question is, I'm interested in your perspective on how the NFIP fits into this morning's conversation, and not simply the insurance piece, but also the floodplain management, risk identification, communications, flood mitigation grants. Nancy, I think David Marstead just literally wrote the best white paper in his question, and we'll just assign him the task of helping solve the problem, of which I will get a call from David Marstead after this. But I do think what David is saying is when you look at Agile and the intergovernmental, these are the kind of challenges that we need now to interlock, including both governance and finance. Nancy, does that, to David's question, you know, how do we look at NFIP, floodplain risk, these pieces?
Right. No, absolutely. And I assume that he's thinking about the federal programs and that all come to play in specific localities. So um, that's absolutely the right question, Richard. And you know, you put your finger on it. Is this is a great topic for us to specifically look at. But yeah, no, the idea is that in any individual place, we have to be able to bring together all of these threads. Part of
Yep.
the complexity, and I'll kind of put my Center for Intergovernmental Partnerships hat on. In so many policy areas, the complexity for local governments is that whatever they want to try to do, there are plenty of federal grants out there. Maybe I'm exaggerating, not whatever they want to do, but there are plenty of federal grants out there, but it's so complicated to try to make them all work together. The application, finding them is hard, applying for them is hard. The requirements for the applications are hard. The timing doesn't match. And then the reporting requirements doesn't match. So it's really kind of crazy making. This might not have been what David was getting at, but absolutely, the big intergovernmental challenge and a big challenge for the hub is going to be how to weave together all of these resources, all of these knowledge bases.
Nancy, you specifically in the work that you and others have done at NAPA, I think what David just kind of sent a nice signal, Amanda, is, sorry, my allergies are really bothering me this morning. Amanda, there are 50, 60 questions that the hub can tackle.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the things that we will do all well through the hub and amongst, leveraging fellows, leveraging the pieces that James Christian talked about this is one of those that I begin to think, what are the 3 or 4 big, big questions, big hurdles, big challenges that if you can tackle these things, then it makes all the other dominoes fall the right way. And Nancy, that may be part of what I think is beginning to get identified is, yes, there are a lot of people, like Barbara said, there are a lot of people working on this, no question. Where are we still hung up? Where are we still challenged? And I think, again, David, who brilliantly led and tried and connected the dots between bipartisan, congressional, and such, has really said, if we begin to look at the hub as tackling these 2, 3, 4 big questions, because then it leads to Lisa Amsler's question, of which I know we just got a few minutes, but I think there's inherently a great question, but also a suggestion. Will you do outreach to the major state level organizations? These include the state affiliates with the National League of Cities or national counties. They hold statewide conferences for local government at which we can reach out to local government leaders. Essentially, Amanda, that is a part of the outreach and engagement strategy. Is that where you see the next couple of months is looking at that kind of roadmap to connecting with some of that state and local leadership?
So we need to do many different things at the same time. This is not a linear project. This is, we need to do several different things at several different times. And thankfully, we have the Center for Intergovernmental Partnerships that already has relationships with those associations, the big 7. So while we may not have had this particular conversation with them yet, we have relationships to leverage to tackle this particular conversation. So we're not starting from ground zero. And that's why I really wanted Nancy to be here today, was that so folks don't think this just was an idea that fell out of the sky and now NAPA's been working on this. No, we've been working on this. We just have been doing it in a different way, doing the research, building the foundation, and now we're ready to drive the action.
And I think inherently part of the convening that you're putting together for after Labor Day, early fall, is one of those steps to engage with. So, Lisa, I think you're hearing that, and one of the reasons why we wanted to do this national town hall is how this gets further introduced to the Academy's fellows, but a lot of folks who may not have heard about the Academy, may not be aware of it. I think, the real opportunity here, and that's the reason why I'm showing this, Amanda, is we're honored. Our board, our leadership, coming from insurance, coming from the ratings agencies, from real estate, we are very honored to now officially, move the Resilience Innovation Hub and its work and efforts underneath this, because this really is the next level, the next evolution of this. And we're hoping that there are other organizations and other partners that get formed that play, a role. We're looking forward to how ultimately each of us can contribute something. I call it, James Christian, the Knights of the Round Table. We all have our own shields, we all have our own flags, but at the end of the day, we are sitting around a table because we all have a common mission. And I think, Amanda, your coordinating role that we all want to contribute to, not just dump all this on you. And so I want to close out knowing that we're 1 minute past. But James Christian, any quick thoughts as we wrap up here? And same thing, Nancy, and then Amanda, I'm going to leave it to you for the final word. So, James
Yeah.
Christian.
I'll just share my thoughts very briefly. I mean, you heard Amanda say that one of the major next steps is looking for a place. And I think that that's needed to know what communities we're going to work in more specifically is kind of a concrete next step. Heard Nancy talk about we're going to bring our resources to bear on this issue, whether it be the Center for Intergovernmental Partnerships or our Agile Center. The Academy is ready and is standing by. And Richard, with your strong partnership, I mean, and also willingness to take a very strong asset and bring it in to the mix with the hub through the Resilience Innovation Initiative, I think that is really a good start, and would encourage others to think the same. Final thought from me is there's a lot of work that has happened, a lot of good work that continues to happen. There's no shortage of challenge ahead. The Academy wants to partner with those in this space, wants to help think about how we can look at new frameworks, new approaches. I think it will require a whole of society type response that everyone understands. And ultimately, the goal that I'm aiming for is to help us think differently about these challenges so that we're able to work across all communities, all places, so to speak, together, and do this in a way that really helps us solve the issue. So the Academy is ready to partner, and hopefully others are as well.
Nancy?
Yeah, so to that, I'll add that I'm so grateful, Richard, that you've given us the opportunity to come speak to your audience about this initiative, because another part of what we're doing is in the organization phase is looking for partners. We're getting the word out. We are excited about getting feedback, and we are in the process of building our own network of partners. So I see this as an important next step for that. And so I hope that folks will follow up with us if they are interested. But I'll let Amanda talk about that.
Well, before Amanda, I'll just point this out. We're not going to have time to answer the question, but Liz Beardsley from the USGBC Green Building Council, one of the smartest policy folks about standards and engagement around adaptation, that's another example, Nancy, is we've got lots of really smart people doing lots of great work. It's not to replace it, it is finding a way to coordinate, and then actually, as James Christian said, let's go find some pilots. Let's go get some things moving. So Amanda, final word, bring us home.
I think everybody said everything I would cover, but if anybody has any questions or would like to partner with us, please check out our website, It's napawash.org/hub. My email address is akmullan@napawash.org. We are ready and excited to partner with folks, learn about what other people are up to, learn from their activities as we get this off the ground, and really looking forward to the future of this initiative and making it come to life. And thank you so much, Richard, for giving us an hour of time with your network and our network. And I think this is a really exciting partnership, and I'm very excited to see where it goes.
So one more time, real quick, we'll get this slide set out to everybody, but it's napawash.org/hub, correct?
Yep, and I just put it in the chat, and I will also put my email address there as well.
Fantastic. Well, listen, thank you. It is truly an honor for us to play this role to support Amanda, you, and I know that, well, here's Friday, so Amanda, talk to you first thing on Monday because we got to get to work.
Gotta get to work, Richard.
Everybody have wonderful weekends. Thank you, the three of y'all, for your leadership, for the drive to make this happen. Thank you to Jane and Mark Paisano, who really are the ones that we have to recognize as at their stages of their careers. They could be enjoying nothing but Southern California, but they have really stepped forward. So I want to make sure all four of us recognize the Paisanos for their role. Have a great weekend, folks. We look forward to talking with you soon, and we'll get the recording out for everybody to share and watch. Take care.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.